Okay, so this meeting will be recorded by the town administrator to provide later for the public. If anyone is recording or videotaping, they need to acknowledge at this time. I did see Helen, I think, from Bourne Enterprise on the line. Okay. If anyone from the public wishes to access the meeting, they can do so by calling the following conference line, 1-929-205-6099, Zoom meeting ID 851-0808-8823, password Watershed, all caps. The Zoom chat will not be monitored. Participants who wish to speak must raise the hand icon until the chair asks them to unmute. All items within this meeting agenda are subject to deliberation and votes. And all right, so short agenda this evening is to discuss our watershed permit. This is our watershed permit workshop. I'm going to give it to you, Marlene, to discuss the award and scope of work, etc.
Thank you. So, as I informed the board in the fall, I did apply for a nitrogen sensitive area grant from DEP. And I learned in late January that we were successful. So DEP has provided $100,000 to get us started on this process. And as part of that grant award, we our obligation is to commit to spending the money by the end of the fiscal year. So, in order to do that, I'd like to move right into the scope of work and expectations for selecting a consulting team. So, part of the challenge here is that we don't have very clear guidance about what's required for a watershed permit. So we there's a very basic application on the DEP website. However, most of the information will be provided through supporting reports and technical memos that have to be developed by a professional engineer. So we, in many ways, are going to have to kind of figure this out as we go along. And what I would recommend is that we take a phased approach to hiring our consultant and signing a contract. So I do not recommend that we try to figure out everything that we're going to need all the way through submitting a watershed permit. I don't think we could do that accurately, and I don't think that we could really determine an accurate cost. And that makes me uncomfortable. I'm sure it makes a number of the board members uncomfortable that we're kind of going into this without knowing how much it's going to cost and what we're getting ourselves into. But what I recommend is that we issue an RFP or an RFQ, an RFQ, and we set it up intentionally from the beginning to be executed in phases. And instead of trying to jump right into putting together a watershed management plan, I think our first phase should be kind of some background information so we all truly understand what our targets are. And if I may, I'm going to just take a minute to go through kind of what I foresee or what I recommend that we ask for in phase one. I recommend that the work that we cover in what I'm calling phase one of the contract be very clearly delineating the watershed boundaries and creating the map and coverage area so that we're crystal clear about what is in the watershed and what is not in the watershed. for both of the watersheds, for Megantic and for Finney's Harbor. And all of these things will be for both of the watershed that I'm going to talk about, both watersheds that I'm going to talk about. Um, Early on, the DEP is going to require that we understand and describe the water quality conditions. So we're going to need to do some analysis of the current water quality and also compile historical water quality analysis data. Um, we're going to need to update the nitrogen load. So both of these watersheds have TMDL numbers that were derived from MEP reports. And MEP is the Massachusetts Estuary Project. I don't recall off the top of my head the date of the MEP reports for both of these watersheds, but they are both a number of years old, probably at least a decade old. So DEP is going to require, as part of this watershed permitting process, that we develop updated nitrogen loads based on changes in the watersheds that have occurred since the MEP reports. Um, And some of the associated tasks that we're going to need to work through are we're going to need to determine the water use data range, and we're going to need to obtain concurrence from DEP on that. So we're going to need to understand how far back into the past for water use data we're going to need to analyze. We're going to have to also, we should obtain concurrence from DEP on what is the practical endpoint of the data that we're going to use to analyze and create the updated load. So we really should talk to DEP beforehand and be very clear about this is the start of the data we're going to look at, and this is the end of the data that we're going to look at. And this time period for water use data is going to be what we're going to base our decision on. We are going to have to coordinate closely with the Bourne Water District in the near future. DEP will require annual reporting as part of the watershed permit framework. And a lot of that annual reporting will be based on water usage. So because have an independent water district, we have an external partner there that we're going to need to work with closely, because we as the town don't actually have a water department and don't have access to that data internally. So what I am seeing in some of the guidance from others who are going through this process is that it is likely that DEP will expect that we provide updated watershed loads annually. So we have to kind of update the nitrogen load from MEP to now and get a new updated baseline load number. And then this is going to be something that we're going to have to maintain these updates on an annual basis with at least a 5-year report along the way. So we are going to have to determine pretty early on what that methodology is that we're going to use to create these updated loads. And because we're going to be expected to follow that year by year. So we should do this in a way that we have a good understanding of what will be required on an ongoing basis, who has the data, how does it get um, sent to the town. Can the town do this analysis in-house, or is this something that's going to be an ongoing consulting contract that is going to need to be established? So those are all kind of early questions to sort out as part of the conversation around updating the nitrogen load. Um, and then these updated load numbers, we need to make sure that we project and anticipate any increased load from from now, from today, or whenever we sign this contract through the planning period. So um, the 20-year watershed permit term will likely be 2030 through 2050. So part of what we need to build into this is how to anticipate or how to project what the load will be over that time period, and then monitor it year by year to see if our projections are accurate, or if we need to adjust our projections for some reason. Part of this work, we will need to estimate the nitrogen load reductions, or any load reductions or increases that have occurred since the MEP reports were issued. And some of those might be associated with land use changes. Some of those might be associated with IA septic system installations. So all of that needs to be taken into account within the watersheds. And I kind of overlaid on top of everything I've said. I think an important part of this phase one work at the beginning here is to create a coordination and communication plan so that the town and our consultants are coordinating early and often with DEP, with MEPA, and with the Cape Cod Commission 208 staff to clarify and create a shared understanding about the proposed permit paths. So one of the difficulties with these watershed permits is that the permit path is not well defined, and we do kind of have to create this. Each town has to create their own permit path independently, or as we go. So I think there's going to need to be a lot of effort, a lot of time devoted to making sure that we are not doing something that is going to result in the DEP or MEPA or the Cape Cod Commission not being able to approve it at the end. So um, there's going to have to be this is going to have to be highly coordinated with our state and county partners. There's also the possibility of coordination with Falmouth and or Sandwich and or JBCC. So even though I'm not recommending we jump straight into developing the watershed management plans, we should understand in the back of our minds that our neighboring towns and the base may also be partners we need to coordinate with. And then as part of this early phase one work, my recommendation is that we should create a protocol and create a framework for public relations and public outreach and education, so that there's regular communications, there's a reliable place to go to find the most current information and to understand what's happening. So in addition, I think from the beginning, we need to work with our consultants to set up whatever we do from the beginning to try to understand our monitoring requirements. So, as part of a watershed permit, will be a monitoring plan of some sort will be required. Um, and these are conversations that our consulting team and we will have to understand what scale is the monitoring plan taking place? Is it at the watershed scale or is it going to be at a sub-watershed scale? Have we established well-defined monitoring goals? Do we know what we're monitoring for and do we know how to monitor for them? Are there clear and unambiguous water quality parameters that we're working within? What is the monitoring methodology? Like, how will the monitoring take place? What is the frequency? Where will we sample? How often will we sample? Um, and on what times, on what cadence and for what duration will we be sampling and monitoring? And then how do we kind of fact check the monitoring to establish some quality control and some quality assurance? So I think I think this is going to be a very, a, a very long time consuming, labor intensive process. And I think I am trying to think from the beginning how to set things up for the long term, for the duration of the entire planning process. So we don't have to go back and redo work or undo work or put different things in place. But my recommendation is that if you agree with this approach, well, one, I'd like to hear if you agree with this approach, or if you don't agree with this approach, what would you like to do differently? And if you do agree with this approach, I would like you to kind of vote to direct me to put this together in an RFQ that I can bring back to you for your final approval and before I put it out kind of in the public for people to respond to. And we can talk about the time frame as far as once I have that all scheduled out as part of the RFQ. But tonight, I'd really like to understand if you agree with this approach or if you would like to do something differently.
Thank you, Marlene, for that. So I guess I'll start with my fellow select board. I'll go around to Peter and Jean first to see thoughts, ideas, changes.
Well, this sounds like a reasonable approach to me. It sounds like a very thoughtful approach, which is a good one, considering that we're, as you say, kind of testing the waters and doing this as we go. So I think what you proposed tonight is a good plan.
Thank you. Peter?
I concur. I mean, the phase-in approach and taking this slow is probably the best way to do it. I don't want to end us going too far down the road, and then all of a sudden we have to redo it, as Marlene said earlier. So I do support her way of thinking of how to move forward.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think of course, I agree. This work, it's very technical and complicated and complex, and there's so many things that are unknown, especially at this level from, myself as select board chair, it just makes me very nervous. So I appreciate the work that you've done to kind of hand it to us in a way that we can swallow it and think about it and be able to take our time so that we're not rushing and making decisions that we're not sure of, especially with the amount of money this may cost. There's a lot of unknowns that make me really, really nervous about this watershed permit. So I agree. I think we should go that route. I see Matt is here. Matt, I don't know if you'd like to add. I do appreciate your thoughts and your work that goes into this. I know you do quite a bit with Marlene, and you're our You're the kind of go-to when we have questions, so I'll put you on the spot if that's okay.
No, I think the plan's fine. I think it's a good plan moving forward.
Okay. All right.
I like the
Just want to
phased
make
approach.
sure.
Well, the thing is Matt being a former water
Yeah.
district superintendent, Marlene has that resource to lean to, and so I think we'll have a good internal structure in place.
Yeah. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure I get your input too, Matt. I didn't want to forget you're here. So do we need a motion to have Marlene draft the RFQ and continue this route, or
I
what's
would,
the
I
pleasure of the
would
board?
actually prefer that if you could vote a motion to have me move forward with preparing the RFQ and then bringing that back to you as soon as I have it ready.
So move.
All right. So we have a motion from Peter, a second from Jean. Any further discussion? All right. Hearing none. Roll call vote. Jean,
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
The chair votes yes. All right, 3-0. Small group. We do, just for the public, so you are aware, we do have select board Vice Chair Sarunian and select board member Mary Jane Mastrangelo are not here at this meeting. They have both recused because they both live in the watersheds, just for the people at home, so you know why they are not present at this meeting. Okay. Anything further, Marlene?
That's it for me tonight.
All right, I think we have a little bit of a direction. I think I'm still a little bit, there's a lot to think about, I know, but do we have motion to adjourn? Because we're going to be meeting going to the next meeting at 7.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion from Peter, a second from Jean. Any further discussion? It's not usual. Hearing none, roll call vote. Jean,
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Okay, so we're adjourned and we will see you all at 7 p.m. for the Finance Committee. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.